Foresight buff should be us seeing what the devs are doing. If Foresight can give us the ability to see what the devs are doing, then it's S tier. That's the buff that Foresight needs. We're going to be rating 21 talents in chapter 3. I have some hot takes that some people might disagree with. Let me know how you guys feel. I will also like to see your own tier list if you guys want to make some disagree with and whatnot. This is only going to be for BR, mainly BR. If you guys want to see one for Dominion, let me know. Let me know if I get enough, if I see enough love from this video, then I might do one for Dominion. But this is mainly just for BR. So the way I do the tiers, I'm gonna base them off of certain requirements per se, right? Basically on like the cost, the usefulness, how much does it impact your own gameplay per se, right? So there's some requirements like that I'm thinking about. F tier are the talents that I feel like in Spellbreak that are just completely useless in BR. Just they have no type of use, and they should either be vaulted or they need major reworks. That would be F tier. I don't think there's any F tier talents. There might be one in body, but I don't think there's too many F tier, right? C tier are talents that are like, they're okay, right? They don't really change your gameplay per se, but they don't really hurt you. They're just there just to be there. So that's the little thing right there. And S tier are talents that are like no brainers. They're low-key must have. Low-key. All right, so intelligent. Like I said, I think since it's a 1-point talent, it doesn't cost too much. It doesn't really do too much either, right? We can safely put this in C tier. I think I'll put all the 1-point talents in C tier because they don't really hurt you. They don't really change your gameplay that much either. So we'll just put them in C tier. Curious is a very mysterious kind of talent. Some people will swear by Curious being the bee's knees, and maybe if you're playing Dominion and whatnot, we can rank it a little bit higher, but I just don't see that much value in Curious in chapter 3 BR per se. Like if you make it to the end zone, chances are you probably have all your talents. For chapter 3 BR, I'll have to say Curious is D tier. That's just my opinion. All right, and then we have Spellslinger. I'm a little impartial towards Spellslinger. I love me some Spellslinger. I love Spellslinger so much that I feel like it shouldn't be a talent. It should be something that people are able to do. To have like as many gauntlets or runes in your inventory is lovely. S tier. You say Spellslinger is S tier. Spellslinger is S tier. S tier is a category that's a must need, right? I guess if you're a Tempest, you might think Spellslinger is S tier if you're a Tempest, but we got to think about all the other classes too, right? Maybe if you're a Tempest, you might put Spellslinger in the S tier, but we have to think about all the other classes. And like if you're playing Toxicologists, Spellslinger might not make all that much sense, right? I'll definitely say Spellslinger is A tier. Let's say that. It's like high A tier. We might say A plus per se. We might say A plus. Now tracking. Tracking is also a very lovely talent in BR. BR solos, duos, and trios. Tracking. But we have to also think of the fact that it's also 3 points. So you will be giving up some build diversity with tracking as well. And there might be some other better talents in the mine category, in my opinion. So you also got to think about how much the talents is cost and like the opportunity cost too, because it's like as we get higher and higher in the cost, that means there's going to be less flexibility you have with the other categories. I want to say tracking is B plus. We might change this because like I back when I was on maidenless behavior, the worst of the worst with my builds, tracking and conduit is just it's just lovely. It's just the bee's knees. So I low-key want to put tracking in A tier, but I think we'll put it in B tier. We put tracking in B tier. Conduit. This man said conduit. Yes, I know. I used to play a lot of conduit back in the day when I just did not have a life, when I didn't touch grass whatsoever. I played a lot of conduit and I frustrated Spellbreak players everywhere. Conduit's gotta go. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Conduit doesn't gotta go. Maybe Conduit just needs a change kind of thing. Next, we have Harden. Now, Harden, some people might say Harden is B tier. I won't say it. In the meta where CC dot damage is king, I think Harden is A tier. I feel like it's just Harden is very slept on, in my opinion. Harden is very slept on. Like being able to like stop corrosion and night for just like easy damage that you receive is just so lovely, especially in this meta of chapter 3. Harden is very slept on. It's very slept on. Now, before we go to Runic Fluency, we're going to talk about the elephant in the room, which is Rebirth. I know a lot of Spellbreak OG players will put Rebirth in F tier, but there is some use for Rebirth, all right? Especially if you're doing duos or trios, when things get chaotic, your Rebirth pops, and then maybe the person who's trying to hunt you down can't focus on you because there's so many things going on, right? Rebirth can be very beneficial in duos and trios, and even sometimes in solos. It's kind of tricky in solos. It might not be that impactful in solos, but it has its use, okay? I knew it. I knew it. I knew you guys were going to say F tier. F tier, useless. It's not useless, all right? It has its moments, F gang. You guys are just not giving Rebirth any love. You guys can put Rebirth in the F tier. I know it has some type of values in duos, trios. It's kind of tricky in solos. Solos BR, Rebirth is a little bit tricky. It could be very useful in endgame. Like, okay, chat, you guys are saying F, F, F. How many times, I'm sure you guys have witnessed this or have this happen to you, where the end zone, you have one of those weird end zones where the zone is closing and you can't reach the person because there's some kind of like structure above you, right? And usually the person who wins in those situations is the person with Rebirth. Am I not wrong? This has happened to a number of Spellbreak streamers that I've seen. Rebirth has value. Now, the question is it C, D, or even possibly B? That's the question. I think we can say it's C plus, right? Well, then again, no. Hold on. I take that back. Because it also is 4 points, though. The fact that it's 4 points is also quite tricky, right? That means you're giving up a lot of opportunity cost to like other builds and other talents that might be more useful. So because of that, because it's 4 points, I think it's fair to say that Rebirth is C tier. It's C tier. It's low C tier. I wouldn't say D tier. Now, Runic Fluency. I don't gotta explain myself for Runic Fluency, guys. Spellbreak is a very movement-based game, and there's a lot of runes that incorporate with movement. So if you have Runic Fluency, it's just a no dud to put Runic Fluency in S tier. Yes, it's 4 points, but I think it's worth the 4 points. It's worth the 4 points. And for a lot of builds, Runic Fluency is like the backbone. It changes the way you play the game to an extent, right? And it just makes life very hard for people who are trying to hit you or even chase you down. Runic Fluency is without a doubt an S tier talent. The question is, are we going to have any other S tier talents? Who knows? Maybe, maybe not. And whatnot. That's it. That's all we're gonna talk about Rebirth. Okay. Next, we're gonna move on to the body category, and we're gonna be talking about tough. Like I said, all the 1 point talents, I'm gonna put them in C tier, right? I'm actually thinking about maybe putting them in B tier, but based on like the things that we said, like, does it really impact the way you play? No. The opportunity cost is sky high, and then I say 1 point talents are 1 tier, or C tier, just because like you don't really need them in your tier. Like if you didn't put them in your build, I should say, not tier. If you put them in your build and remove them, you wouldn't really notice that much of a difference, right? You wouldn't notice that much of a difference, in my opinion. Right, like with intelligence roll cooldown, this one is usually paired with inspired, but if you remove it, you won't really notice that big of a difference in your builds, in my opinion. All right, next we have dexterity. Dexterity, I'm gonna put in B tier, right? I think of dexterity as training wheels for movement in Spellbreak, or mana control per se. If you're someone who's always seeing that, oh, I'm running out of mana because I'm always levitating so much, pick up dexterity. So dexterity is very good training wheels to get the hang of chapter 3 management. It reduces the amount of mana you use on levitation, excuse me, and it also increases your run speed, which is lovely. So I think that's just a note though. Dexterity is also I won't say very slept on, but it can be very useful from time to time, and it's only 2 points as well. So next we have Wellspring, which is a damage build. Again, it can be somewhat of a training wheel for mana management, not for levitation, but if you're just running out of mana, your mana gets recovered quickly. I think I'll put this in front of Dexterity. I think I'll put Wellspring in front of Dexterity. For BR, I think it might be fair to say that Fellowship might be our first and maybe our only F tier talent, right? So Fellowship is supposed to like distribute. It's supposed to be like a team play kind of rune. So automatically, if you're playing BR solos, you're not gonna have any use for Fellowship. And even if you're playing duos and trios, the fact that it's 3 points, you're giving up a lot. But the fact that you have to be in a certain range also kind of sucks. If it was like rangeless, maybe then we might be talking about something for BR. But I think it's fair to say Fellowship is F tier, right? It needs a major upgrade. Or maybe just vault it all together. Fellowship OP. Okay, now you guys are just trying to like contradict me just to contradict. That's what it is. That's what's going on right now. All right, now Vigor. A lot of people will say Vigor is S tier. Some people might say A tier. I feel like the reason why people say Vigor is S tier is because they usually combined it with Vampiric. And if that's the case, then yeah, but we have to think about overall use. Does it really change the way you play per se? Maybe not really. I feel like the reason why some people might say Vigor is S tier is because of Vampiric. And Vampiric is what kind of changes the way you play. I think it's safe to say that Vigor is A tier, right? Having more HP, 50 more HP is lovely. It's lovely, especially against like the whole corrosion meta that's kind of like spawned in chapter 3. Having more HP so you don't have to worry about your armor is lovely. I'll definitely say it's A tier. It's kind of like a defensive kind of stat or a defensive kind of talent in a way, in my opinion. I'm not too sure if I should put it in front of Harden. I feel like these two are kind of tied. Actually, I think I put it behind Harden. I put it behind Harden. And actually, I think we put Harden in front of Spellslinger because of just like the potential of like anti-CC Harden brings. I'll put Harden in front of Spellslinger and then Vigor behind of Spellslinger. Now I'm thinking, I might even put Spellslinger in B tier, y'all. I mean, it does change the way you play. It's only 2 points. I think Spellslinger is good where it's at A. We won't change it. But I think I might put Vigor in front of Spellslinger. Because, like, let's be honest, Spellslinger is only good for a handful of classes, right? It's only good for a handful of classes. Maybe you can make a case for Stone, Tempest. What other class can you really make a strong case for Spellslinger, right? Maybe Conduit. Maybe Tox, maybe. Yeah, I think it's good at A tier. MB is top tier. Yes, I do agree that Ambidextrous can be very top tier in BR, right? Like, let's say if you're playing Tempest and you want to have like combustion and you don't want to go all the way to the Fire Temple, it's a good talent. The only problem is the fact that we also have temples in BR. So that kind of like knocks Ambidextrous down a bit, in my opinion. And then we also have to include the fact that it's 4 points, right? Let's say if you want to have Alacrity and you're playing Toxicologist, it might make more sense just to go to the Frost Shrine, right? So you can just save that 4 points for something else in your build, right? If this was maybe like, if we're doing like a Dominion tier list, I might put Ambidextrous a little bit higher. We might put Ambidextrous a little bit higher, but because we have temples, Ambidextrous and BR kind of takes a knock, right? And it's also 4 points. It really does impact the way you play, right? It really changes the way you play as well, and it can be very beneficial too. I think we have to put Ambidextrous in B tier, right? We'll put it in B tier. I think Athletic might be D tier, guys. It doesn't really change the way you play in BR per se. You know, one thing, I might change tracking to A tier as well. Just because, like, I'm starting to think of its usefulness in duos and trios as well. And then if you're going against people who are using Invis, we might put tracking in low A tier. Yeah, I think we'll put tracking low A tier because when I think about duos, trios, that's also quite useful as well to have someone who knows what they're doing with tracking. And it can really impact the way the team plays overall. I'm not convinced to put it in S tier yet. I don't know. You guys have to make a strong case for me to put tracking in S tier. And having run speed in BR is okay. It's good, right? It makes you harder to hit. But is it really worth the 4 points? That's the real question we got to ask yourself. Is it worth the 4 points? And I don't think so. I feel like you give up too much with Athletic. I don't know. I think Athletic is D tier, in my opinion. Having more run speed is nice, but I don't think it's that important. It's not that important. Plus, it's also 4 points. That's just me. You got Dom games. All right. Now we have Mystical. Like I said, I think all the 1-point talents are C. Mystical is kind of. I think a lot of people like Tough, but Mystical is also nice too, especially if you're someone who's struggling with mana control. But I think I put Tough in front of Mystical, Mystical in front of Intelligence, Intelligence in front of Rebirth. I think that is how it should be. Now we have Thirsty, then Vampiric. All right. This is for BR, right? Remember, BR. Thirsty used to be such a great talent. I know a lot of the OGs would want Thirsty to be S tier, but with its recent nerf, that I believe it came in chapter 2, right? The nerf to Thirsty came in chapter 2, where it only increases your pot. It doesn't give your teammates benefit. It's just a very selfish talent now. It became more selfish of a talent. Part of me wants to put Thirsty at S tier, but I've been in a lot of stack events where the end game is just so chaotic, where you don't have an opportunity to really heal just because of AoE everywhere, right? But besides the end game though, Thirsty is very, very strong if you know how to position, you know how to kite. Thirsty can be very beneficial. I wouldn't say Thirsty is useless. Thirsty still has its benefits. I think I put Thirsty in A tier, right? I'll put Thirsty in A tier. A tier is kind of tricky because there's a lot of ties in A tier. I still think Harden is the best A tier talent. I don't know. I think I might actually put Tracking in front of Vigor. Thirsty in front. Yeah, I think this is fair. Yeah. So I put Thirsty in A tier. It has its values, especially if you know how to kite. It's just like at the end of the game in BR, it really dwindles in comparison to Vampiric. It really dwindles. With Vigor, it's just really, really strong. It's really strong in chapter 3 meta as well. And since it's only 2 points, I think it's fair to say that Vampiric might be our other S tier talent. Vampiric, all you have to do is like hit your shots, and you don't even have. It doesn't even have to be a direct shot. Like you get HP back from dot damage as well. Yes, it 40% of like 3 damage doesn't sound a lot, but it adds up very quickly when there's a lot of dot damage going on in chapter 3, especially in BR end circles. And one of the drawbacks of Thirsty is the fact that you need pots, right? So you might be in the end circle and you just don't have pots at all, right? And so then Thirsty's practically useless in the end circle in that situation. But Vampiric is always going to be useful. Yes, I think if you're doing like a 1v1 and both players have pots, Thirsty might outrank Vampiric if you know how to position well. But we're thinking about the whole game, and at the end of the day, you want to win the end game, right? Next, we have Inspired, which is a damage build, right? Is it S tier? I don't think so. It costs 3 points, so you're giving up some other talents that you could use. Maybe it changes the way you play it a little bit, meaning that, oh, maybe I shouldn't use my rune here because I want to have max damage there. Or if you're playing Conduit, it's very strong with Conduit. Pairs very well with Runic Fluency. Some people say Intelligence and Inspired is a nice combo. I'm kind of skeptical on that. I'm really skeptical. Inspired really works well with micro runes, movement runes. And what I mean by that, I mean like dash, dodge, spring step. I said dodge. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm talking about dash, spring step, maybe even shadow step. Like runes that have low cooldowns. I think we can agree that it's not S tier. I want to say Inspired might be high B tier. I think Wellspring is a better damage build than Inspired just because all you have to do is just run out of mana. It's easier, but with Inspired, you actually have to think about when do I want to use my runes, right? Because rune movement is very important in Spellbreak. And if you want to get the most out of Inspired, you have to be very careful when you use your runes. So I think we could say Inspired is B tier. It's a little bit harder to use than Wellspring, where Wellspring you don't even have to really think about using Wellspring. You just run out of mana and then you have damage. I'll say these two are tied, right? It's not that much harder to use than Wellspring, but it is somewhat harder, and then it also costs more as well. And as we can see, if you pick up Inspired, you're giving up Vampiric, which is an S tier talent in the Spirit category, in my opinion. So that's the opportunity cost that you also have to think about. It's 3 points. I think inspired in B tier is fair. I think it's fair, and whatnot. But hey, we're done. We're done with the 1 point talents. We're gonna be talking about Fortitude now. Fortitude, it's 3 points. It's very strong, right? But it depends on what you're going against. Fortitude is very weak against Conduit, Tox, and Wind. So it's weak against like 3 out of the 6 gauntlets in this game. Because if you're rocking Fortitude and you're going against someone who's using Conduit, you kind of SOL. If you're a very like close engagement person and you're rocking Fortitude against someone who's rocking Tox, you're kind of SOL, right? It kind of defeats its purpose, but it can still be very strong. Like if you're someone who hates getting sniped out of nowhere, then Fortitude might be your jam, right? It has its uses. I can't put Fortitude in A tier. It's definitely not S tier, right? And being able to have your like shield bubble come back every, I think it's 20 seconds, especially since the TTK and Spellbreak has changed dramatically. Fights are lasting a lot longer than usual. Fortitude can be very strong, but if you're going against Tempest, someone can just knock out your Fortitude pretty quickly. Lightning, same thing. Tox, to an extent, same thing. And then if you're going against a Pyro user, the Combustion, same thing. I think it's fair to put Fortitude in B tier. Fortitude is slept on. Just because I put it in B tier, doesn't mean it's a bad rune, right? Or a bad talent. I think any talent that's C and above are good talents. Anything that's C and above are good talents that you can incorporate in your build. Next, we have Foresight tier. I low-key want to put Foresight in F tier. How many people in chat actually use Foresight in duos or trios? I want to see. Is that a Shadow Step talent? I don't know what talent is next to Guild. It's Foresight. Yeah, I guess Gecko just answered my question. I guess no one uses Foresight. I low-key want to put Foresight in F tier. Foresight busted. How so? How's Foresight busted? I low-key want to put Foresight in F. D tier. I mean, it might have some uses in like comp, like in trios, but you got to remember Foresight is 4 points, right? So you're giving up a lot, right? Means you automatically can't use Vigor, which I think is an S tier spirit talent. Spellbreak has a very open map, so and there's not that many hiding spots, especially now that you don't have crouch. So chances are you can see people and you can also hear people fighting. So that's just enough, right? I don't think you really need a radar to also judge when to like push a fight and when not to push a fight. I guess so. Yeah, it could be very useful in the early game, maybe. I guess we'll put Foresight D tier. If you're someone in the chat right now, or if you're watching this on YouTube, try to convince me of putting Foresight higher than D tier. I think Foresight needs a buff. I don't know what that buff is per se. Maybe the range should be longer. Maybe you actually see people. Like you get wall hacks per se, kind of like Wolf's Blood. Maybe then you can do something about that. But I think Foresight in D tier is fair. I think it's fair. Foresight buff should be us seeing what the devs are doing. That's funny. Yeah. Foresight. That should be the Foresight build. If Foresight can give us the ability to see what the devs are doing, then it's S tier. That's the buff that Foresight needs. Burrito, you're a riot, bro. You're a riot. Now Gilded. This is another talent that some people swear up and down by. Gilded can be very beneficial in Dom and respawnable game modes, but we're talking about just BR. How important. I want to low-key put Gilded in C tier. Remember what I said. Everything that's in C and above can be useful. Can be in a useful build. My issue with Gilded is that Chapter 3 Spellbreak, I don't be having personal that much hard time finding good gear from my experience. This is from my personal experience, right? Now the question is, having gold everything, is it really that big of a deal? I don't know. I feel like having gold versus epic equipment isn't all that special, in my opinion. Like the gold to epic, the change isn't really all that drastic, in my opinion. I think Gilded is C tier. Like I said, I will put it in front of Rebirth. But yeah, I think this is a good one. I think this is good. If you guys have anything else, let me know. We had some changes. You guys were able to persuade me with some of these talents as well. Subscribe to Kaizen's YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, comment, and follow his switch. My switch. I don't know how to switch. I'm pretty sure he means Twitch.